the meat down.
Monster Hunter Wilds is just around the corner and I could not be more excited. My first experience with the Monster Hunter series was with Monster Hunter World, and I'm sure a lot of us are in that similar position. That game just really captured me with how the combat, the world design, and the crafting and gathering all work together to make you feel so excited to go on the hunt. However, the popularity of the Monster Hunter series has remained relatively niche. Even though World did help bring the series more into the mainstream spotlight, it still remained niche. However, with the release of Monster Hunter Wilds, I believe we will finally see the Monster Hunter series more and more into the mainstream. I think there are a few reasons why we expect to see Monster Hunter Wilds be so successful, one of them being the release of PC and crossplay on day one. But really, I think there are a lot of reasons why I expect this game to be so successful. So if you are someone who's been on the fence about getting into the Monster Hunter series, hopefully this video is for you and helps convince you to play. So without further delay, why should you play Monster Hunter? Let's start off with the primary strength of Monster Hunter, and that's the combat. Monster Hunter combat is very weighty. I mean, look at the weapons you're wielding. Some of these things are gigantic pieces of metal that your character is kinda struggling to throw around. In fact, one of my favorite aspects about the combat is simply the animations. Your characters have to deal with the weight and physics behind these hefty weapons, and one of these examples is with a weapon called the Switch Axe, which is a weapon that transforms between a giant battle axe and a greatsword. In one of these animations, your character will swing and spin around their battle axe, and the weight of the axe really kind of makes your character lean into it, and it looks really meaty and amazing. This style of gameplay also makes combat feel more strategic due to the longer attack animations. As a result, you will want to find your openings by observing monster attack patterns to find when you can safely land attacks. In this way, you can almost draw comparisons to a Dark Souls or Elden Ring boss. In these games, if you just go in and swing blindly, you're probably gonna have a bad time. However, Monster Hunter's combat continues to feel incredible because once you start to familiarize yourself with these monster behaviors and attack patterns, you start to more consistently land your attacks. Not only does landing these attacks mean that you are just dealing damage, you also are weakening different monster body parts, and these lead to a mechanic that are such a massive dopamine hit called part breaks. All monsters have various weak spots and parts of their body that can either be damaged or removed entirely. Removing some parts also makes fights easier in some aspects. Let's use the franchise's poster child, the Rathalos, as an example. This dragon constantly flies around, launching fireballs from above. However, if you manage to clip his wings, he will fly around much less frequently and be forced to fight on the ground. This makes different monster fights feel a lot more rewarding for good play and attacking different body parts of the monster. But one final note about the combat is how it really feels like you're actually hunting a monster. There are no health bars for these encounters. You simply have to read their body language to get an idea of how healthy they are or what attacks they might be unleashing. In addition, terrain can really be used to your benefit. Every ecosystem will have natural traps for you to take advantage of, many of which will either cause massive damage to monsters or some will briefly stun them, creating an opportunity for you to attack freely. Finally, it's also wise to prepare for each individual hunt. You'll want to stock up your inventory with helpful items catered towards hunting your target specifically. What this means is that some monsters might have venomous attacks. In this case, you would want to make sure you're bringing antidotes to remove that poison effect. Oh, and as always, don't forget to eat before every single hunt. These meals that you eat prior to a hunt will increase your maximum health, your maximum stamina, as well as provide some passive effects.
No! We never wanted this to happen!
No stopping it now. Not once it starts flowing.
Next up, let's talk about the story of Monster Hunter. If I'm being honest, the stories are a little bit shallow, so if you're someone who is playing games exclusively for a deep story with a lot of character progression, then Monster Hunter might not really be for you. The stories of Monster Hunter often follow the same formula. You're a rising hunter who comes to a village after a close encounter with some monsters. From there will be some sort of calamitous monster you have to try to stop, which oftentimes requires you to go out and search for clues on what is causing this disaster or where to find the monster. That tends to be the general flow of the story, and really the main purpose is just to be a driver to get you in front of the next monster. However, each monster is a boss fight in and of itself, so if you're someone who's only really interested in boss fights and doesn't really care about the fluff that leads up to those encounters, then this game will speak to you.
What is that thing? An extinct species.
You're a hunter. You've got a weapon, and you do nothing.
In this third section, I want to talk about build expression. Monster Hunter does not have a class system at all. Instead, they have 14 different weapon types, each with its own distinct playstyle. Of these 14 different weapons, you're very likely to find a playstyle that suits you from a moveset perspective. Are you someone who prefers a roguelike fast attack playstyle, or just really likes Levi from Attack on Titan? Then dual blades might be for you. Or maybe you really like dealing damage from afar and you like heavy artillery, in which case the heavy bowgun might be to your liking. Or perhaps you're a person of culture and have Oonga Boonga brain and just want to smash, in which case the Hammer Club welcomes you. No matter your preferred playstyle, there's likely going to be a weapon that resonates with you. On top of weapon movesets, there are also armor skills that supplement and develop into further playstyles. Just as an example of a playstyle that you can choose to opt into, there are different status ailments, so you can play a support type build which really utilizes and leans into these different status effects. One of these effects is to put monsters to sleep. Sleep is a really strong effect which allows you to take a moment to just reset the fight. You can heal up, you can sharpen your weapons, and most importantly, you can place down traps. These barrels will explode and deal a lot of damage to a monster and wake them up with a bang. But of course, there's also DPS builds that speedrunners will often chase after. These will actually be the most common builds you tend to see. All of this is just to say that experimentation is really encouraged in the Monster Hunter franchise, so if build expression and creating new and crazy builds is something you really enjoy, then welcome to Monster Hunter. Next up, we're talking about the world design of Monster Hunter Wilds. These games typically offer multiple ecosystems for you to explore, and Wilds is no different. As of right now, Wilds has 4 confirmed biomes, which are the Windward Plains, the Scarlet Forest, Oilwell Basin, and the recently announced Ice Shard Cliffs. The Windward Plains is a region with a mixture of desert, grasslands, and rocky terrain. We know the apex predator, or the strongest enemy within this ecosystem, is the Raidao, which is a really cool looking lightning-themed dragon. The Scarlet Forest is a rainforest known for its towering trees and having red-colored water flowing through the rivers, which is where it derives its name from. The apex predator of this location is the hulking Uthduna, which is a monster that has different veils that it uses for protection that you have to break through. Next, we have the Oilwell Basin, and as far as we know, this is a cavernous location with a lot of oil-like substances covering the ground. It seems a lot of the monsters and the locals in this location have a propensity for fire, so much so that the apex predator of this location is called the Black Flame, but its proper name is the New Udra. This monster is a cephalopod type creature, which basically means an octopus that has several different tentacles, all of which can be individually cut. And finally, for the Ice Shard Cliffs, we don't really know a ton about this location other than it's along a mountainside and it's in a colder location. It seems like the apex predator might be the Gormagala, which is a returning monster, but it's unclear at this time if that's the case. One of my favorite things about the world design is just how the different monsters interact within the world. Each monster species has their own personality and tendencies.
Is that monster absorbing its energy?
And now for this last section, there are several things to cover within it, so I'm just going to call this the gameplay activities. These will be all the gameplay activities you can expect to find in Monster Hunter Wilds to keep you coming back for more. The main activity is the grind, which usually involves hunting monsters for their parts. As you collect their different parts, you can then craft gear to take on more dangerous and powerful monsters, and then you can start gathering the parts from those more powerful monsters to upgrade your gear and the cycle keeps continuing. Monster Hunter frequently has collaborations with different gaming franchises, and in these different collaborations, you're oftentimes given rewards in the form of armor pieces that you can wear to make your character look like a specific character from a different franchise. For example, in Monster Hunter World, Witcher 3 was one of the collaborations. If you completed the quest, you were given equipment that made you look like Geralt from The Witcher 3. But fashion isn't the only thing that these collaborations provide. Sometimes they also introduce monsters specific to a different gaming franchise, and one example of this is in, yet again, Monster Hunter World. They introduced the Final Fantasy Behemoth monster, which was a really cool adaptation into the Monster Hunter World combat. And finally, as I already mentioned, fashion is something that's still important to Monster Hunter. The armor sets that you can acquire are really cool looking, and you can acquire items that allows you to wear these different cool armor sets in appearance only, meaning that when you wear these different armor sets, it won't actually impact your build in any way, but it will make you appear the way that you want to, meaning that, like most games, fashion is the true endgame boss. If you're interested in joining a small community of hunters, consider continuing the discussion by joining the Discord. The invite link is in the description below. And if you're interested in more Monster Hunter Wilds videos in the near future, consider subscribing to the channel to stay notified when those videos release. But this was GooberTroy saying thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video.